In the Builder's Workshop last year, and in several videos that I have posted, I have talked about the importance of the Hermetic foundations of everything that we deal in when it deals with alchemy, Kabbalah, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism. The Hermetic principles are at the foundation of all of those things. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to explore what that means exactly by going into the texts themselves and presenting them to you, for you to listen to, and draw you into what those texts are. I have talked about the Kabbalion and have done a whole extensive reading of the Kabbalion on this channel. We're going to move to the next level. We're actually going to examine the Corpus Hermeticum now. It was thought for hundreds and hundreds of years that the writings of Hermes predated Moses, and there was such a veneration to Hermes Trismegistus that he was accepted, sometimes grudgingly, but accepted by early church leaders of both the Christian church and the Islamic church. In fact, when the Christians of the late 300s and 400s began their extermination of any pagan faith, and that would be defined as anything not their version of Christianity, to include other sects of Christianity that they did not agree with. The Hermeticists and Neoplatonists of the time in Alexandria, Egypt, etc., made their way across the Middle East to what is now Iran and Turkey and the old Persian Empire. And from there, they continued their studies and their advancements, and they took upon themselves the name of the Sabians, because they had to, because the Islamic government at that time said, if you aren't aligned with one of the old peoples of the holy writings, we will kill you. And so they took upon themselves the names of the Sabians. And that is how they have evolved. And to this day, there are still remnants of them in the Mandeans. The Corpus Hermeticum was one of those. That is the foundational text of the Hermetic principles. And in the 1600s, a copy was produced by an Italian, I believe he was a monk, who had scoured the European countryside for the Hermetic text or any type of historical items of faith. And he came across Greek writings, and he brought them back, and they were translated. And around 1614, it was determined that the Hermetic text actually did not predate Moses, or at least that document did not, but rather it was written in the 200s and 300s, where a lot of Gnostic texts were written, which diminished the passion for those texts considerably. However, with the discovery of the Nag Hammadi texts in Egypt in 1945, we see now there were some Hermetic texts in that as well, and those were preserved in Coptic, Egyptian, and we see that some of the teachings of the Hermetic principles reach back all the way to ancient Egypt, which indicates that the teachings, while the Corpus Hermeticum may have been written in 200 or 300, or at least that version was, that doesn't mean that that's when they were invented, but rather these ideas have come from antiquity and before. And the Corpus Hermeticum is a series of books. There are 14 or 15 books that make up the entirety of the body of work that we're going to get into. And I have put together, this is the first one, it's Poimandres. And Poimandres is the Hermetic version of Genesis, and it is 32 verses. And I have put together a visual show to go with it from my brain, trying to have AI create images that correlate to what I see in the texts. And I've also used, it is me reading, but I have altered my voice to be more presentable for a reading audience. I don't feel that my voice is particularly suited for that. So anyhow, we're gonna watch that, and let me know what you think. If this is something useful? This is the entirety of Poimandres with the show attached to it. And I'd like to make my way through the various Hermetic texts in this form and fashion. So, I am the Desert Viking, and today we will be going over Poimandres, the first book of the Corpus Hermeticum.
The Corpus Hermeticum, Book 1, Poimandres to Hermes Trismegistus. Once, when mind had become intent on the things which are, and my understanding was raised to a great height, when my bodily senses were withdrawn, as in sleep, when men are weighed down by too much food or by the fatigue of the body, it seems that someone immensely great of infinite dimensions happened to call my name and said to me, "What do you wish to hear and behold? And having beheld, what do you wish to learn and know?" "Who are you?" said I. He said, "I am Poimandres, the Nous of the Supreme. I know what you wish, and I am with you everywhere." "I wish to learn," said I, "the things that are and understand their nature, and to know God. Oh, how I wish to hear those things." He spoke to me again, "Holding your Nous all that you wish to learn, and I will teach you." When he had thus spoken, he changed in form, and forthwith, upon the instant, all things opened up before me, and I beheld a boundless view. All had become light, a gentle and joyous light, and I was filled with longing when I saw it. After a little while, there had come to be in one part a downward-moving darkness, fearful and loathsome, which I experienced as a twisting and unfolding motion. Thus it appeared to me. I saw the nature of the darkness change into a watery substance, which was indescribably shaken about, and gave out smoke as from fire, culminating in an unutterable and mournful echo. There was sent forth from the watery substance a loud, inarticulate cry. The sound, as I thought, was of the light. Out of the light came forth the holy word, which entered into the watery substance, and pure fire leapt from the watery substance and rose up. The fire was insubstantial, piercing, and active. The air, being light, followed the breath and mounted up till it reached the fire, away from earth and water, so that it seemed to be suspended from the fire. The earth and water remained in their own place, mingled together, so that they could not be distinguished. They were kept in motion by the breath of the word, which passed over them within hearing. Poimandres spoke to me and said, "Have you understood what you have seen and what it means?" "I shall come to know it," I said. "That light," he said, "is I, Nous, your God, who was before the watery substance which appeared out of the darkness, and the clear word from Nous is the Son of God." "How can this be?" said I. "Know this," he said, "that which sees and hears within you is the word of the Lord, and Nous is God the Father. They are not separate from each other, for their union is life." "Thank you," I said. "But perceive the light and know it," said Poimandres. And when he had thus spoken, he looked at me full in the face for a long time, so that his form made me tremble. When he had looked up, I saw in my own Nous that the light was in innumerable powers, having become an infinite world. I saw fire encompassed by a mighty power, being under command to keep its place. I was intent upon these things, seeing them by means of the word of Poimandres. As I stood amazed, Poimandres spoke again to me, saying, You saw in Naus the first form, which is prior to the beginning of the beginningless and endless. Thus spoke Poimandres to me. Then, I said, whence did the elements of nature have their origins? And he answered, from the will of God, which holding the word and seeing the beautiful cosmos made one exactly like it, fashioned from her own constituent elements and the offspring of souls. Nows, God, being male and female, beginning as life and light, gave birth by the word to another Nows, the creator of the world. He, being the god of fire and air, formed 7 powers, who encompass in their circles the sensory world, and the governance of these powers is called destiny. Immediately the word of God leapt forth from the downward-moving elements to the pure work of the Creator, and was united with the Creator Nows, for he was of the same substance, and the downward-moving elements of the creation were left behind, without the word, to be matter alone. Nows, the Creator, together with the word, encompassing the spheres and spinning them round with a rushing motion, caused those things he had made to revolve, and he allowed them to revolve from no fixed beginning to an end without limit, for it begins where it ends. The rotation of these spheres, as Nows willed, brought forth from the downward-moving elements living beings without speech, for they did not contain the word, and the air produced winged creatures, and the water swimming creatures. The earth and the water were separated from each other, as Nows willed, and the earth brought forth from herself what she possesses, 4-footed animals, reptiles, beasts, wild and tame. Nows, the Father of all, who is life and light, brought forth man, the same as himself, whom he loved as his own child, for man was very beautiful, bearing the image of his Father. It was really his own form that God loved, and he handed over to him all of his creation. When man had observed in the Father the creation of the Creator, he himself wished to create, and he was given permission to do so by the Father. Being begotten in the sphere of the Creator, he observed carefully the creations of his brother, from which he obtained every power. The Father and the brother loved him, and each gave him of their own authority. Having acquired knowledge of their essence and partaking in their nature, he wished to break through the circumference of the spheres and to come to know the power of him who was set in authority over the fire. Having all power over the world of mortals and living creatures without speech, he looked down through the harmony of the cosmos, and having broken through the sovereignty of the divine power, he showed to downward-moving nature the beautiful form of God. And when she had seen the beauty which never satiates with him, who had in himself all the energy of the powers and the form of God, she smiled with love, because she had seen the image of the most beautiful form of man in the water, and his shadow upon the earth. And he, seeing in himself a similar form to his own in the water, fell in love with her, and wished to dwell there. No sooner wished than done, and he inhabited a form without speech. Nature, having taken her beloved, enfolded him completely, and they united, for they loved each other. For this reason, of all living things on earth, man alone is double, mortal because of the body, immortal because of the real man. For although being immortal and having authority over all, he suffers mortal things which are subject to destiny. Then, although above the harmony of the cosmos, he has become a slave within it. He is beyond gender, as he has been born from a father beyond gender, and he never sleeps, as he is ruled by one who never sleeps. And what after that, my Nows? For I love the conversation. Poimandres said, "This is the mystery which has been kept secret until this day. For nature, united with man, has brought forth a wonder of wonders. Man, as I told you, was of the Father and of Spirit, and had the nature of the harmony of the 7 spheres. So nature did not wait, but immediately brought forth 7 men corresponding to the natures of the 7 powers, beyond gender and sublime. And what after this, Poimandres? I greatly desire to hear more. Please, do not stop. Poimandres said, Be silent. I have not yet fully expounded what I have begun to say. Indeed, I shall say nothing, said I. As I said, the generation of those 7 took place in the following way. The earth was female, and the water potent, and from the fire came the fruit, and from the ether nature received the breath, and produced the bodies according to the form of man. From life and light, man became soul and nous. From life soul, from light nous, and all things of the perceptible world remained so until the end of a cycle and the beginning of ages. Listen further to the word you were longing to hear. On completion of the cycle, the bond of all was loosed according to the will of God. For all living things, which were of both genders, were parted asunder at the same time as man, and became in turn male and female. God forthwith spoke the holy word. All that has been fashioned and brought into being, may you increase and continue to increase. May you multiply and continue to multiply, and may the man endowed with nous recognize that he is immortal. That desire is the cause of death, and may he come to know all things that are. God, having thus spoken, providence brought about acts of union through destiny, and the harmony of the cosmos, and established the generations, and all things were multiplied according to their species. He who had recognized himself came to the supreme good, while he who had prized the body, born from the illusion of desire, remained wandering in the dark, suffering through the senses the things of death. In what terrible way do the ignorant go wrong, said I, that they have been deprived of immortality? And he said, You seem not to have taken heed of the things you have heard. Did I not tell you to keep these things in mind? Thank you, I replied. I will do so and remember. And he continued, If you have remembered, tell me, why are those who are in death worthy of death? I replied, Because the grim darkness is the first origin of one's own body, from which darkness arose the watery nature, and from which darkness the body is formed in the sensory world of which death drinks. You have observed correctly, he said. But why does he who has remembered himself go to the Father, as the word of God says? I replied, Because the Father of all is constituted out of light and life, whence man has been begotten. Poimandres then said, The truth is, light and life is God and Father, whence man is begotten. If, therefore, you realize yourself as being from life and light, and that you have been made out of them, you will return to life. But tell me further, how I shall return to life, my nous, for God declares, Let the man endowed with nous remember himself. Do not all men have nous? I asked. Mark your words, he replied. I, nous itself, come to the aid of the devout, the noble, pure, merciful, and those who live piously. And my presence becomes a help, and straightway they know all things. By a life full of love they win the favor of the Father, and lovingly they give thanks, praising and singing hymns to him in due order. Before giving up the body to its own death, they shut down the senses, having seen their effects, or rather, I, nous, will not allow the activities of the body which assail them to have effect. Being the gatekeeper, I shall close the entrances to evil and dishonorable actions, cutting off their thoughts. As for those without nous, the evil, the worthless, the envious, the greedy, murderers, the ungodly. I am very far from them, having given away to the avenging spirit who assaults each of them through their senses, throwing fiery darts at them. He also moves them to greater acts of lawlessness, so that such a man suffers greater retribution. Yet he does not cease from having limitless appetite for his lust, nor from fighting in the dark without respite. The avenging spirit then puts him to torture and increases the fire upon him to its utmost. You have taught me these things well, as I wished, O Nows. Now tell me how the way back is found. To this Poimandres replied, First, in the dissolution of the material body, one gives the body itself up to change. The form you have become becomes unseen, and you surrender to the divine power your habitual character, now inactive. The bodily senses return to their own sources. Then they become parts again and rise for action, while the seat of emotions and desires go to mechanical nature. Thus a man starts to rise up through the harmony of the cosmos. To the first plane he surrenders the activity of growth and diminution. To the second, the means of evil, trickery, now being inactive. To the third, covetous deceit, now inactive. And to the fourth, the eminence pertaining to a ruler, being now without avarice. To the fifth, impious daring and reckless audacity. And to the sixth, evil impulses for wealth. All of these being now inactive. And to the seventh plane, the falsehood, which waits in ambush. Then, stripped of the activities of the cosmos, he enters the substance of the eighth plane with his own power, and he sings praises to the Father with those who are present. Those who are near rejoice at his coming. Being made like to those who are there together, he also hears certain powers which are above the eighth sphere singing praises to God with sweet voice. Then in due order they ascend to the Father, and they surrender themselves to the powers and become the powers. They are merged in God. This is the end, the supreme good for those who have had the higher knowledge to become God. Well then, why do you delay? Should you not, having received all, become the guide to those who are worthy, so that the human race may be saved by God through you? Having said that to me, Poimandres mingled with the powers. When I had thanked and praised the Father of the All, I was freed by him, having been strengthened and instructed in the nature of all and in the most high vision, and I began to proclaim to men the beauty of piety and knowledge. O people, men born of the earth, who have given yourselves over to drink and sleep, and to ignorance of God, be sober, cease being intoxicated, cease being beguiled by dull sleep. Those who heard came to my side with one accord, and I said, Why, O men born of earth, have you given yourselves over to death while having the power to partake of immortality? Repent. You who have kept company with those who have wandered and have shared in ignorance, be released from the dark light. Take part in immortality. Put an end to destruction. Some of them kept on chattering and stood aloof, giving themselves over to the path of death. Others begged to be instructed, having thrown themselves at my feet. Lifting them up, I became the guide of the race, teaching the words of God, how they could be saved. I vowed in them the words of wisdom, and they were nourished by the water of immortality. As the evening came and the rays of the sun began fully to set, I bade them to thank God. When they had fully given thanks, each returned to his own bed. I engraved in myself the beneficent kindness of Poimandres, and having been filled with what I desired, I was delighted. For the sleep of the body became the sobriety of the soul. The closing of the eyes became true vision. My silence became pregnant with the supreme good, and the utterance of the word became the generation of riches. All this came to me who had received it from my Nous, that is to say, from Poimandres, the word of the Supreme. I have come divinely inspired by the truth, wherefore I give praise to God the Father with my whole soul and strength. Holy is God the Father of all. Holy is God whose will is accomplished by his own powers. Holy is God who wills to be known and is known by those that are his own. Holy art thou who by the word has united all that is. Holy art thou of whom all nature became an image. Holy art thou whom nature has not created. Holy art thou who is stronger than all power. Holy art thou who art higher than all preeminence. Holy art thou who surpasses praises. Receive pure offerings of speech offered to you by inner mind and heart, thou who art unutterable, vast, beyond description, who art spoken of by silence. I beg you that I may not fall from the knowledge that leads toward your essence, and endow me with vitality by this grace. I shall enlighten those of the race who are in ignorance, my brothers, and your sons. Wherefore I have faith and I bear witness. I go to life and light. You are blessed, Father. He who is your man wants to share in your holiness, as you have given him all authority. And thus ends Book 1, Poimandres, by Hermes Trismegistus.